Nick Caserio makes the rounds. Did he drop hints, including the biggest hint of the offseason? I think the answer is yes. Go inside the locker room. Lot to get into.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock.
It is the locker room, number one source for Texans digital content. We're going to go stick Mike tonight. A little basketball to watch. So we're going stick Mike on the stream, Scott Hall style.
Hey, yo.
And we're going to react to what Nick Caserio did today. Nick Caserio made the rounds digitally. He went local with Mark and John, and he went national with Kay Adams. And he dropped the same hint on both of these things. Both of these appearances, he dropped the same hint, which leads to a lot of questions. And we are in the season. We've transitioned from draft season cabin fever into the calm before camp questions. But this is the most important question of the season. And I feel like maybe Nick Caserio dropped a hell of a hint. Now, let's get into that. We'll also talk about some motivation from one of Nick Caserio's early draft picks. But let's hear what Nick Caley, the new offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, and this is the biggest mystery of this offseason. What offense are the Texans running? What is it going to look like? How is Nick Caley going to handle adjustments? We know the background, the New England and the Rams. Let's just go back to when I asked Nick Caley, hey, what system are we running here, sir? This was my first question to new offensive coordinator Nick Caley.
And you said the scheme's going to be player-driven. A lot of talking points when you hire an offensive coordinator. Are they going to run the McVay scheme? Are they going to go back to the Patriots? How would someone like me describe the scheme if we were talking about it?
Yeah, it's going to be Houston's. It's going to be our scheme based on what we do. And I don't say that to throw any curveballs. It really is. I mean, my history dating back to when I first got into the National Football League under Coach Belichick is we were going to be a game plan team. If that meant we were going to run duo and gap schemes and run the ball 45 times to win the game, then that's what we were going to do. If we had to run more perimeter plays, wide zone, and we felt that was going to give us the edge, we were going to do that. It was all going to be based. We were going to ask our guys to do what they do well, but it was going to be based on what we do to help us win. And at the end of the day, we want to win, and that's priority for us.
And follow up and watching last year and taking in all that information and approaching the offseason, is there anything that you think or any area of improvement that you think this offense needs to make to achieve those goals?
I would say this. I'm really only focused on moving forward, and each year is different. We're going to hit the time. We're going to get into free agency, draft, et cetera. We'll see how our team shapes up here in the next couple months, but we'll put our focus in that one day at a time as we put together our roster.
All right, I like that, and I like that, dude. I'm a fan of what Nick Caley can bring. I'm a fan of him as a candidate. He was one of the more popular candidates. And quite frankly, I think the excitement is one of the fun things to anticipate. Like, what is it going to look like when Nick Caley calls plays? Is he going to be able to take the good things from New England and the Rams and balance them together? I think that's an interesting angle and approach and something to be relatively excited about. Now, does that guarantee that it's going to be good? No. I mean, of all places, we know that doesn't really assure anything, but there is kind of a mystery. He says it's going to be the Houston offense. He said it's not going to be the Rams system or the Patriots system. So I get that. Okay, we'll see. And we won't know until we see it. But then today, as Nick Caserio is making the digital rounds, today, Nick Caserio says not once, but twice. And Cody Stutz, who you hear with me on SNL, Cody caught it on the Kay Adams. I couldn't get through that whole interview, to be honest with you. There were some things that he said on there that we'll talk about, but I wasn't really like just flat listening to that whole interview, just to be completely honest with you. I like a lot of the stuff. It was just kind of But he did say the exact same thing there that he said with Mark and John about this system. And this system is supposed to be the first time they run it. It's supposed to be a hybrid. It's supposed to be a combination of Rams and Patriots. But then Nick Caserio says this, and it just gets me, maybe with my cabin fever, maybe with my willingness and desire to overanalyze things, just kind of gets me wondering, okay, well, what does that mean? What was Nick saying here? And here's what I'm talking about. Well, he said this exact same thing when talking about the offensive line with Kay Adams, but this is him with John and Mark.
Many changes here. You draft Ersery, and you said moments ago, sometimes you let the players sort it out themselves. Is that the case here in a way? Because I know you have a lot of possibilities with that front five.
Yeah, for sure. Have a lot of confidence in the players in our building. Some players have been in our system. Other players haven't been in our system. So that's what the spring is for.
Wait. Say that again. Some players have what?
Five.
Yeah, for sure. Have a lot of confidence in the players in our building. Some players have been in our system. Other players haven't been in our system. So that's what the spring is for. Kind of put the foundation in place. And once we get into training camp, we'll kind of see how the competition goes.
So some players have been in our system. I thought this system didn't exist. I thought this was new. So what does that mean when you talk about the offensive line? They've brought some guys that have been in the Patriot system. Trent Brown, they just signed Andrews. They've signed a few guys. They brought some guys that have been in the McVay type of system. They brought a couple guys, Cam Robinson and Ingram from the Vikings. There's some guys who've been in the Slowick, which is kind of an offspring of the Shanahan thing. But he's saying that these players have been in our system. I don't know what their system is. And I thought this was kind of a new thing. I didn't expect him to go out there and do something revolutionary and something that we've never seen. But Nick Caserio says there's guys that have been in our system. So is it the Patriot system? Is it the Rams system? I don't think there's like a wrong answer. This isn't gotcha. This is more of like, I'm looking forward to seeing this play out. I'm kind of enjoying the uncertainty of the offense. And I don't know what they're going to run. Nick Caley didn't want to tell me what they're going to run. They didn't want to get too specific on it. But Nick Caserio, not once, but twice today, he goes on digital platforms and says that some of these offensive linemen have been in our system. What is it? What does it mean? Help me make some sense of this. I'm very excited to see what this system is and what it looks like. Nick Caserio dropping clues today. For sure. Super Bowl says he's BSing. BSing what? Like what would he be BSing? What's the BSing meter? They've been in our system. He said it with a straight face. What's he BSing about? There's no smoke screen or anything like that. What would the BS be? Is he trying to BS Kay Adams? Frank Z says Kay Adams interviewed Caserio today at 10 a.m. Yeah, we know. we just said that. Thanks for the update, brother. On the super chat, HDAV Traveler. You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Evening, Landry and friends. Evening, AV Traveler. HDAV. My guy, a.k.a. Jack. Won't give out the full government, a.k.a. Jack. So there it is. Who knows what Caserio is saying? What is he talking about? What is the system? Big question. Can't wait to see how it plays out. But did Caserio drop a clue? I'll let you decide. I thought it was a little bit interesting. So there's one way that they're leaning.
5.
Yeah, for sure. Have a lot of confidence in the players in our building. Some players have been in our system. Other players haven't been in our system. So that's what the spring is.
He said that on offense, and he said that on the O-line. Maybe he means the overall system as a whole. Who knows? Cabin fever will get you. Another thing I noticed today, and this was on the This was on the internet as I was kind of going through the Ersery pick. So this was him in Kansas City when he was selected. He's rocking a KC hat. He's got the Beware a Dog. He's got his whole family with him. And you can just see the overall excitement. But look at the KC hat right there. And you can see the family going nuts. And this is from Mick Schaefer out there in KC. He's a sports director at KSHB 41. Ariante Ersery is going to have a big chip on his shoulder when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Because I watched the news story with him. Chiefs fans and his family. Chiefs need an offensive lineman. Chiefs take Simmons on the back end of day one. This young man has to go to sleep, upset that he's not a first-round pick, upset that his hometown team that needs offensive linemen took someone at his position, has to sleep, mentioned when he was doing his media availability, his first media availability, mentioned that he hadn't slept. Matter of fact, when asked what he wanted to buy with his contract, he just said, I want some sleep. So you got to think it was a sleepless night of frustration. And then when he was asked after he got drafted about the Chiefs, he just said, I'll see him in the playoffs. That's all he said is, I'll see him in the playoffs. That's all he had to say. I think he's going to have a little extra chip on his shoulder, for sure. Little chip on his shoulder. Someone in the chat asks about Ladarius Henderson. I thought that was a prank, to be honest with you. I thought that was a weird prank. I saw Sideline Sarah asked it. She does a good job aggregating the squad, but I thought it was weird. I think 3 people asked Kay Adams, and then she said it. I actually thought it made Texans fans look a little weird because she said this was the most frequent question. Stutes counted it. It was 3. I don't know why that is something that people would want to know. And you could tell Caserio was actually, I mean, he was a good sport about it, but he actually thought it was weird that he was asked a Ladarius question too on a national platform. I don't even think they would ask that on Texans radio. It was actually kind of cringe for me, to be honest with you. So I don't know where this is coming from, like where, this movement of Henderson and stuff is. But I thought it was like a Shedeur Sanders type of prank, to be honest with you. So I think Kay Adams just asked for a question. She saw the question. Sideline Sarah follows the squad very well. And I guess a couple people asked, but she made it seem like that was like the most popular topic for Texans fans, which would be kind of strange, to be completely honest with you, when it comes to that. Other takeaways from the Caserio digital tour, if you will, other takeaways from Nick. I think it's interesting how multiple times Caserio has talked about having trades in the first round. And he said this in the press conference after day one as well. But he said it again, and it leads you to just wonder, like, what did he want? Abuka's been a name that's come up. Some people think Golden. Maybe it was an offensive lineman. Booker got taken 12, so you got to think that was gone. But he's now admitted a couple of times, a guy who's so private that he was looking to trade and move up in the draft, and they ended up doing what they did with Higgins and Ersery. So maybe he's protected from himself, but it is interesting that he has said this. And it makes you wonder, like, who was this guy? Who did you want? But it's been brought up multiple times. I thought that was interesting. He was asked about Woody Marks on Texans radio, and he said he looks at him as a 3-down guy, mentioned his pass catching. So there was a conversation before the draft. There's kind of emphasis on, we were talking more about Blue and Smith as far as them, and we were using the James White comparison of, could the Texans add that element Seems like they wanted to. They did so with Marks. And he mentioned him being in the Mike Leach offense and then the Leakum Riley offense, which I don't know how well that translates to the NFL, but the pass catching seems to be an emphasis. How much will they use that? And the other thing I think that kind of adds to that, and this was one of the most frustrating things about last year, one of the things that kind of adds to that is the fact that maybe that means they'll actually use Mixon, who's a really, really good receiver out of the backfield too. They didn't do that last year. And we know why.
Damn it, Bobby.
But maybe there will be a use of Joe Mixon's skills, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a guy that you drafted in the 4th round of the draft. Maybe you can maximize the full skill set of everybody on the team. And that means not asking Dalton Schultz to block. But he seems to like Marks, talked about him being a third down guy. James White is absolutely a Patriots legend, and he's the prime example of being able to catch that rock out of the backfield and provide another element. Caserio also emphasized the variety on the offensive line, as well as the competition on the O-line. And I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing. Sometimes it's good to have variety, but when you have these guys that can do a number of things, but maybe not anything specifically well, it goes back to the versatility pet peeve that has been expressed time and time again this time of the year by the Texans along the offensive line during a stretch where they've struggled pretty heavily along the offensive line. And this is going back to 2018. Variety is not always great on the offensive line. You want guys who can do just certain things. And Caserio also said, this was a quote with Kay Adams. He said, quote, when talking about the offensive line, and we're going through Caserio's media tour, the stuff that stuck out the most. He said, quote, it's going to manifest itself, but we could add a player. What position? Who knows? Maybe they need to see it at camp. Talked about that, but it's going to manifest itself. We could add a player. You would hope that means on the interior at this point. You drafted 2 guys in the 2nd round at tackle. You paid $15 million to another. Now, getting return on investment on the offensive line is a lot to ask during the Nick Caserio era, but you would hope that maybe that means on the interior. And you have Titus Howard right now on the interior, who's among the highest paid tackles. And you have Juice Scruggs, who used a 2nd round pick on. But you would hope that that's the situation. The other thing that I thought about here is that the 50% that Nick Caserio talked about, which I actually agree with, like when you look at draft picks after the fact, he said the draft is basically 50-50. Now, I don't know if I want my decision makers saying that 2 days before the draft. But that's the reality of the situation. A lot of them don't pan out. There's a lot of variables, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure Nick Caserio could say blah, 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 and do like a 4-minute word salad. But there's a lot of variables. But based on that 50% that he threw out there, you have drafted a tackle in the 2nd round the last 2 years. So hopefully one of those guys can play. If both of them can, that's awesome. Cam Robinson gets beat out, awesome. Me and Stutz had a disagreement today on SNL. He said, if Cam Robinson is a notch above Ersery, he would play Cam Robinson. I'd play Ersery. Cam Robinson can be an expensive swing tackle because the young kids are going to have to grow and develop. But if he's a notch below Cam Robinson right off the top in camp, he's going to get better. You would hope he's going to get better. A lot of guys have had a lot of good things to say about Ersery. He's going to get better. So if he's a notch below, get his ass on the field. I don't hold it against you that you gave Cam Robinson $15 million after you traded Tunsil and then a rookie ends up beating him out. It's the same thing like when the Seattle Seahawks, and this is what I think is funny about this. This is a mindset, but one of the most historic free agency to draft to training camp decisions in the history of the NFL was when the Seattle Seahawks, they paid Matt Flynn. Then they ended up drafting Russell Wilson. And at camp, Russell Wilson beat out Matt Flynn. And they just took it on the chin and said, oh, well, he's a better player. We'll grow and develop with him. They won a Super Bowl. They could have won 2. Should have won 2. So if Cam Robinson signs a $15 million deal after you trade Laramie Tunsil and Ersery is a notch below him, put his ass on the damn field and let him develop. I have no problem with that. I'm not sitting here saying if he is like way behind him. I'm not saying start Blake Fisher over Laramie Tunsil last year. And I'm not even saying this is realistic, but Stoots said if he's just a notch above, start. Nah, put him out there. Let him grow and develop, and you have a good insurance policy in Robinson. Go with the young guy. And use these receivers to get the ball out of CJ's hands quicker and maybe send some help over there. But there's been like, it's a feeling now with how bad this offensive line has been coached through multiple coaches, multiple schemes, multiple eras, where we just assume that every single matchup that an offensive lineman has is a wrestling match. And in some instances it is, but you can help these guys out. You can chip. Did the Texans did Bobby Slowick even know about chips?
Damn it, Bobby.
Bobby Slowick, there were no chips, or else the tight ends just didn't know how to chip. I promise you Nick Caley's going to emphasize chipping. You can get rid of the ball quick. You can help them out. There's a lot of things you can do. But if to go back to it, if he's a notch below, put his ass out there. I don't need to see Cam Robinson. We've seen it multiple times. If it's competition, it's competition. If we're going to throw out the word competition on the offensive line, let's have some competition. And even close to the tie goes to the pups in this instance. Okay? It goes to the pups. The young guys. Yeah, you want the best 5, but if it's close, let's see what happens. Let's go to the chat. It is the locker room here. Streaming, watching a little baloncesto. Jamari says that Marks will be a dog. I wanted the Pats to get him. So you're a Pats fan. Okay. I don't know if he's as much of a dog as the Texans thought he was, but they felt good enough about him to trade the 3rd next year. Oh, this Lakers game's getting good. Space Age says that Reed will have an impact on the defense, no doubt. Okay. I like Reed. I think he can do a lot of Petrie-like things. Maybe they're going to shuffle in guys at that position. But I definitely think he's a special teamer, and I definitely think he can develop into a pretty good player. I'm a big Reed guy. I like what he's made of. Derek asks, does Ersery have any injury history? I know he redshirted. I don't know anything about like a lot of that. Space Age says Stoots is in his feelings. He wanted certain guys, and most of them were already drafted. I don't know if he's in his feelings, is he? I don't think there's like a notion that guys get mad when the players that they want don't get drafted. I don't think Stoots does that. I think he just doesn't think that Ersery, and I disagree with Stoots on this too. He doesn't think he's going to help this year. I don't give a shit. Like at the tackle position, if you have Cam Robinson and you have Blake Fisher and you don't have anything, like if you think this guy can start eventually, I have no problem like drafting a tackle that might not be ready that can be a swing tackle. Swing tackles can be important. But I think the notion that he's not going to help this year, I think it might be a little bit premature. He's a big, fast dude. And I mean, a lot of people thought he was a first-round guy. There was a lot of disagreement this year on the back end of the tackles. So, yeah, I don't think Stutz is in his feels on it. I think he actually likes this draft all right. He's all right. J-Tom Reaction says, what hints is he dropping just got in? You can always rewind when you come through here. Shout out to everyone in the chat, but Caserio said that some of these guys have been in their system. He said it on Adams and he said it on Texans radio in regards to offensive linemen. Marcus says, I think the offensive line can work out. Hopefully Henderson stay healthy. Where is Henderson coming from? I feel like Sideline Sarah is like the daughter of the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons D coordinator. I don't know. Like, is Henderson even I mean, we didn't even know if he was going to make the team next year or last year. I know he's injured. But yeah, I think that I almost thought that was a joke. I don't know about that. Stutz wants every draft pick to help in 2025. Yeah, I get that to a certain point, but I mean, that's a crazy way to go about it, you know? Like if you do that, that's the ultimate example of drafting for need. I think that's one of the things that Caserio has talked about. If you just want guys to immediately make impacts, in a perfect world, you do. But if Ersery establishes himself as one of your 4 best tackles, 3 best tackles, or maybe starts, I mean, it's not the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot to do. So, yeah, that's where me and Cody disagree. I also want to get into something else that Caserio says, because what they can't say is the real C word to describe the offensive line. Because there's been an emphasis on a C word to describe this offensive line. I know your mind's automatically going the gutters. You say, man, you're dropping the C word on the offensive line. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. But they are. But it's not the C word you're thinking about. And I don't think they're even dropping the appropriate C word. So let's kind of get through the gaslight of what Caserio and D'Amico are saying when it comes to this offensive line. Because there's one thing that they're hanging their hat on big time, and it's competition. And they talk about how we got competition on the offensive line, and we love competition, and we want to have competition, and competition's a good thing, and all this type of stuff. You hear D'Amico say it. Competition, yeah, competition, iron sharpens iron, all that type of stuff, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, we love competition. Caserio said it today. It's not true. It's not true. And I'm not blaming them for saying that, but that's not reality and that's not true. And this is what I mean by that. They don't believe in competition when they have really good players. Will Anderson didn't have to compete to start. Kamari Lassiter didn't have to compete to start. He was starting immediately. They had a corny-ass competition kind of for CJ Stroud, but before they made that announcement, he was getting all the first-team reps. So there really wasn't competition there. They don't have competition on defense. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, Azeez Al-Shire, Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter, they're not competing. Nico Collins isn't competing for his spot. Neither is Joe Mixon. Neither is CJ Stroud. Now, last year, they didn't have any competition on the offensive line, and that kind of generated an eye roll. And they proved that they were kind of delusional. So it's nice that they have competition, but I think the real problem last year and why they didn't have it is they were delusional and they thought they had a good offensive line, and they did not. But competition is more symbolic of the fact that they don't have very many guys that they can trust to line up and start in front of CJ Stroud. This isn't some sort of universal thing. In a perfect world next year, with this offensive line, they would love to not have competition. They would love to be able to just line up 5 guys and then everybody else is competing for backup. So they like the competition, but this is not like some sort of like belief or culture, and this is what we believe in, because you didn't believe in it with Kamari Lassiter, appropriately so. You didn't believe in it with Will Anderson, appropriately so. You didn't really believe in it with Tank Dell when he first got here, because he could immediately play. So competition is fine, but competition is not a symbol of what y'all like. It's a competition of what y'all have, and most importantly, what you don't have is you don't have quality starters on the offensive line. Now, the real thing that they want to say, and the real C word that matters the most when it comes to the offensive line, it's not competition. It's change. Change is what they're hanging their head on. These aren't the same guys as last year. There's a change. There's a new coach. There's a new offensive coordinator. There's new players. There's change. But they're not just going to come out and say, yeah, you know, we changed stuff. We got rid of the guys that we thought stunk. They're not going to come out and say that. But when Caserio goes up there and says, yeah, we're really happy we have competition. No, you're not. I mean, it's there. It exists. It's better than just handing Kenyon Green a starting spot, or Juice Scruggs a starting spot, or Shaq Mason a starting spot. It's better. But we're not happy to have competition. You would rather not have competition. You would rather have certainty at the offensive line. There's another C word. And hopefully next year, that's where they are. They're at certainty. But sometimes you got to look through the gaslight and the word salad that Caserio throws out. Competition, cool. But that's not ideal. You would much rather have stability and be able to figure that out. But the change is good. The change is great. That's what you hang your hat on. You have change. It's not square peg, round hole. You have a lot of bodies. Competence is another C word. That would be great on the offensive line. In every area, competence. That would be nice. Knuckles says there needs to be some balance with this character culture movement. It makes sense, but we need some O-linemen to eat raw meat or something. Some dogs that eat raw meat. Okay. Pause on that. But competence would be nice. Competence, consistency. But change is what they're settling for right now. Beggars can't be choosers. When you have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, I guess competition is what you can say, but it's not some sort of belief. It's not some sort of belief that they have. So we'll see what that looks like. It's fine. They don't have a choice, but that's not a belief. OO says competition is good. Okay. Is it? Do you want Nico Collins competing for a starting spot? You want CJ Stroud competing for a starting spot? Derek Stingley? No. Really, really good players are good. Competition means that you don't have someone that you really, really trust. That's what that means. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what the system looks like. That's what that means. 100% what that means. And I can't wait to see. We got a little rookie mini camp next week, so we just get to look at these guys in front of us. It's always cool. Like, they don't do much, but you just kind of get a look of what these guys look like in front of you. A lot of these guys, they come in, you can tell they gonna get much more in shape once they go through an NFL offseason. Like, I'm intrigued to see what Cade Stover looks like. But we'll get a look at the rookies next week, and I'll be there. And then I think some of them will talk. We don't know who will or who won't talk. But I really have no criticisms of what they've done with the offensive line. There's a little nitpicking about, they could have signed this guy or that guy on the interior. I get that, but I think that trading Laramie Tunsil, I was fine with it. I don't mind getting rid of Laramie Tunsil. I don't think the offensive line is going to get any worse with it. I like the mindset. I like the fact that Ersery, when he's asked about what he's going to spend his bread on, he says, I just want sleep. I haven't really thought about that. Coach, you got the best tackle in the draft. I think that's a good mindset. So I have no problem with it, but they don't want competition. They've accepted the fact that there's competition. And they've shown that they don't necessarily believe in that when they believe in somebody. And that would be cool if you can separate past evaluations and past feelings with decisions they make. Like, if we go to camp and let's say Ersery is your starting left tackle and there's no hesitation, or Blake Fisher is there and there's no hesitation, maybe you feel okay because there's different decision makers, or maybe you flash back to last year when there was no competition. But it's a lot. All we can do is pray and hope. Rob Nino says, yeah, hopefully they got a little bit more than that. Hopefully they're not living on a prayer when it comes to the offensive line. Who knows? Titus Howard's going to be interesting. I know he's one of the more disliked guys in this chat. Looks like he's in shape. I don't know what they think of him. Is he a guard? I doubt he's a tackle. You're not drafting all these tackles if you truly believe in Titus. Ersery moving to guard. There's been talk about that. I mean, I don't know. I just want guys that can do one thing really well. If your backups are versatile, cool, but I know they'll say they'll play the best five. We've heard that. God, we've heard that forever. Just not a fan of that. Just not a fan. So that's really the takeaways from the Caserio digital tour. They seem to have an idea of what the system is. They just haven't told us. We'll probably try to get a grasp of that. He tried to make a trade. We'll probably never know who he tried to trade for. And he's still open to signing someone on the offensive line. Now, is that going to be before camp, after camp? Who knows? Your guess is as good as mine when it comes to what the hell Nick is going to do. Yeah, I don't think he's a guard at all. He seems like the prototypical tackle. He's a massive human. And they've signed quite a few guards. It's just really hard to fit. It's really hard to fit all these pieces when it comes to the offensive line. Me and Cody put the spreadsheet together today with the offensive line, and there's just a lot. It takes you all over the place with what they do. And the weirdest one to look at when you're looking at the depth chart is Titus Howard. Because you almost wonder, like, is he going to be, like, on the depth chart, is he going to be your backup right tackle? Is he just going to be a guard? Is there going to be emergency situations? Like, what are they doing with Titus? Because right now, I think you got to keep him at least another year with the way that they've laid this out. I know there's not a lot of belief in Titus Howard, and I think that's appropriate. I don't think you should really believe in Titus Howard, but it doesn't make sense. Like when you look at Juice Scruggs, you're looking at center and then you're looking at guard. So you visually have an idea. Patterson, pretty much the same. Like those guys are kind of interchangeable. Tomlinson, right there at guard. Fisher, right tackle, you would think, and then Cam Robinson at left tackle. But then where does Ersery fit? Like, are they going to give Ersery an opportunity to start at right tackle with Cam Robinson at left? Like, how much are they moving these guys around? Like with the first team, are we going to see Ersery backing up and then he's the backup left and right tackle? Because last year with Fisher, he was the left tackle at the start because Tunsil wasn't really at practice. So you had Fisher at left, and then you were moving him to right. I don't know how easy or hard that is for offensive linemen. Some offensive linemen say talk about how difficult it is. It can't be too easy, but how much are you moving these guys around? Like, is Titus Howard going from left guard to the backup right tackle? I think the second team of the offensive line is going to be just as interesting as the first team. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We still got a few months till camp. But these are the kind of questions that you get. And then when you hear Caserio talk about it, your head just starts spinning. Like, okay, we got guys who can do this, and then we got guys who can do multiple things, and we got guys who do that. Like, like, do they have a depth chart? Do they have an idea? Because the depth chart that they put online, it never really matches up. But when we're out there at camp and we're diagramming it, me and Stutes, like what are we looking at? And by the way, me and Stutes are going to start practice reports this year. So be on the lookout for those. I do my 1 minute on my personal channel, which we'll do. But we're going to start giving more in-depth coverage during practice as well. We'll still have the live at 4 o'clock, but we got you covered on that. So if you're not already subscribed to SNL, subscribe to SNL. If you're not already subscribed to this channel, go ahead and subscribe to this as well. Appreciate everyone for rolling through. It's going to be a wild ride on that offensive line. And when you really think about it, there's really not much more competition anywhere else. You know why? Because you feel good about those areas. It goes back to the competition thing. Wide receiver, we have a decent idea of who's going to be on the team. You can probably name the top 5 receivers. Now, what does it look like after them? Where are they going to be? Who knows? But it's going to be Nico. It's going to be Kirk. It's going to be Higgins. It's going to be Knoll. And I think it's going to be Watson. I think that's your 5. And then Xavier Hutchinson's gotten some praise from Caserio. After that, it's just kind of a free-for-all practice squad preseason type of thing, I think. I don't know if Berrios makes the team at this point. They did not sign Berrios in anticipation that they would be able to get Knoll. Maybe they do. Maybe they keep 7 receivers. Who knows? 6 or 7. Who knows? We never know what those numbers are going to be. But my point is, you know what that looks like. Running back, same thing as last year at this point. Maybe they sign someone and make it a little bit interesting. We'll see what's up with Marks. Interested to see what the back end like JJ Taylor does. I'm not anticipating much from British Brooks unless they're going to put him at fullback. I think that's kind of a practice squad candidate with the way that this is going. So running back, kind of the same. Tight end, you have the same 3 as last year, and then you have Irv Smith and you have Lachey. I'm interested to see what Lachey looks like, how polished he is, how good he blocks. I mean, his dad was an all-pro offensive lineman. He's big as hell. I mean, if he goes in there and he separates himself as a blocker, then maybe Lachey could be one of the surprises. Because we judge him by his pass catching, and he does come from tight end U, but maybe there's a chance that Lachey ends up being one of those guys that just his super skill is blocking. And with this tight end group, I expect Stover to come back a better blocker. But if that's something that Lachey already does well in the style of football they play in Iowa, is such to where they kind of ask you to do those types of things, that could be interesting. But that's bottom end of the depth chart type of stuff. The defense, back end of the corners, back end of the safeties position, maybe some linebacker depth, and DT will be interesting. But we have a pretty good idea of who they like at DT. Maybe there's some surprises. But all the things you feel good about, there's no competition. The thing that you feel worst about, there's competition. So don't let them gaslight you into it's change. It's different. That's the C word that needs to be focused on. It's changed. It's different than what they did last year. Competition's not good. It's not good. So don't let Caserio and D'Amico. This is just get through the gaslighting and get through the word salad. No, competition's not great. Hopefully there's none next year on the offensive line. But Lachey will be someone to check out. Yusuf says there's a real possibility that the first team OL might be on par to be worse than the second team at the start of camp. This is a concern. That's why they have that competition to see which one's better. But yeah, I that's actually a good exercise to think of. I think that's actually a really good idea, where when they first line up in team drills in training camp, what does the first team offensive line look like and how different will it be? That's something we'll put together. So what does the first team O-line look like? And what do we predict that it will be? And I could see them being just really weird where they're lining up different, which don't overthink it. Like you're not getting some competitive advantage by starting so and so and so and so. But that might, that we'll be sure to diagram that. That'll be one of the first tweets during practice is, okay, this is the first team offense. Do you think that this is the offensive line that starts the season? The chances are the answer would be no, but maybe they have some sort of idea. That's just where it's at when it comes to the offensive line. And we'll see how it go. Appreciate y'all for coming through. We'll watch the end of this Lakers-Wolves game. Shout out to the Rockets for getting the dub today. Got a little chippy at the end. But be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to ride along. And be sure to always remember that when it comes to this Texans stuff, we're all in it together. Very much appreciation for y'all rolling with us throughout the offseason. Never a slow time. We were a few hundred deep here, and it's only going to get better. Business is going to pick up. Nick Caserio, competition. Don't gaslight us. We already know what is that system. And shout out to the people for pulling the Shador Sanders prank and getting Kay Adams to ask about Henderson. That was funny. Bye-bye.
In the headlock, localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up, we number one. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.